at me and tell me what you see. I look at you and tell you what I feel. Look at me and tell me what you see. I look at you and tell you what I feel.
Welcome back to the Tomb Raider series, and with the first movie being surprisingly watchable, I'm actually hopeful about a sequel for once. And the Cradle of Life takes a more adult approach in many ways. So let's begin and take a look at Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, The Cradle of Life. They could have shortened that title a bit though. The film begins in Greece, at a wedding, but this is not a crossover with My Big Fat Greek Wedding, as the DJ starts his music just as a massive earthquake begins, which destroys parts of the island, leading into an actually quite nice looking opening titles. We then move to a treasure hunting boat in the ocean as they watch other boats drag treasure from the ruin that the earthquake unearthed, and then Lara shows up on a jet ski as she pulls off a trick, just for the hell of it seems. Gotta remind us of her badass status. Lara explains what the ruins are, that it's a temple built by Alexander the Great which houses his most prized possessions. Lara also says that where the other treasure hunters are digging is actually the wrong place, and she knows where the temple is, which is pretty lucky that no one else is as smart as Lara Croft. She prepares to dive down and the ship captain tells her everything is trying to keep Alexander's treasure buried.
Maybe this temple's not meant to be found.
Everything lost is meant to be found.
And that swimsuit Lara is wearing, which is very similar to the one from Tomb Raider Underworld, except far, far less skimpy. She only wears it in this opening sequence. Was that really enough justification for putting it on the poster? However, this film does correct the problem I had with the previous, and they chose not to increase Angelina Jolie's breast size. So, that's a plus. The group dive down to the ruins and they're spooked by a shark. Did that shark snarl? I'm not sure they do that. They get inside the ruins lighting very conveniently placed light sources. The two guys find some treasure, and Lara finds some pictographs depicting a box with light coming from it. Huh. Turns out the top men who took the Ark of the Covenant was Alexander the Great. Who knew? Elsewhere in the ruin, Lara finds a coin and attempts to pry it loose, and as she does, something else lights the whole place up, with Lara knowing she's gonna grab it. However, while that's happening, some bad guys have entered the ruin as well. Lara does a weird teddy bear roll for some reason to get a big orb held in a pedestal, which she begins to make recordings of as the ruins start collapsing around them. She cuts the orb free, but the two other guys are actually killed, and she's shot in the leg, causing the orb to drop and get taken by the bad guys. Lara surfaces to grab a gun and starts shooting as the bad guys take the coin as well. Shooting a pillar, Lara causes the entire structure to start caving in, and the two remaining bad guys take the dive vehicles, shooting the remaining one, forcing Lara to improvise, as she cuts into her arm. Lara's blood attracts the shark from earlier, but as she's a badass, she just punches it right in the face and rides it to the surface, her arm magically healing in the process, I might add. But finding her boat destroyed, she activates a distress beacon and waits for rescue. Now, that opening was so much better than the previous movie's opening. It showed actual tomb raiding, it showed a lot more about Lara's character and her ability to survive and improvise, and it showed that this film is far more bloodthirsty too, which is how a Tomb Raider movie should be, frankly. So right now, this movie's shaping up pretty good. I know, I'm as shocked as you are. After Lara drifts in the sea for a while, a submarine comes up beneath her, with Hillary and her tech friend there to greet her. I would question how she got the submarine, but at this point, I just accept it. We then get introduced to our bad guy on a personal jet with the bad guys from other countries, as he talks about all the deadly toxins and viruses he's created for them. And one of the members takes a sip of his drink and begins dying quite catastrophically, as he tells them all that the guy was a mole for MI6, so he's decided to kill him.
That, gentlemen, is the sound of a traitor dying.
That was an accelerated form of Ebola, deadliest disease known to man.
Ebola, you say? That's surprisingly on the nose considering the current events. I swear that wasn't intentional. Shall we continue? The guy gives everyone a pill to swallow that's an antidote to this strain of Ebola, and after trying to kill them, he tells them his plan is to give them a completely new incurable virus for $100 million from each of them. But it's not clear yet just why he's doing it. A truly horrible person, just what you need in a decent villain. However, with all this virus talk, we are straying dangerously close to the plot of Mission Impossible 2. If it wasn't for all the mystical elements, it'd be even closer. Back at Lara's mansion, she and Hillary are sparring, and Lara is quite angry about the people who were killed, as she takes it out on Hillary, who seems more like a trainer and mentor rather than a butler right now. Lara is pretty determined to find out just what the orb is and why it's worth killing for, so she says they're going to research every mention of an orb in Greek history until they find what they're looking for. Then there's more Lara Croft uber badass stuff as she's horse riding side saddle, but it's not to protect her modesty, it's actually so she can shoot at targets. Horseback shooting, it's a sport people just aren't into anymore, so it's good to see her practicing. A helicopter arrives, getting Lara's attention as she rides back, but not before finishing off her targets. And in the mansion, Hillary and Lara's tech friend are speaking with two MI6 agents. It's a real shame Daniel Craig didn't show up for this film, he'd fit right in. But the agents, one of whom bears an amazing likeness for Alan Rickman, tells Lara about the man who killed her associates, a Chinese gangster called Chen Lo, and he's working for our bioterrorist bad guy, Rice. Lara also figures out that the box in the pictographs is none other than Pandora's box.
Do you mean the Greek myth? Pandora is given a box by God, told not to open it, she dies and unleashes pain into the world.
Whoa! Why did he bring God into it? Pandora's box is a Greek myth, not a Judeo-Christian one, thank you. And it was Zeus who gave Pandora the box. Actually, in the original myth, it was a jar, but now we're just nitpicking. So yeah, let's just leave God out of this. Lara continues to correct him by saying that the place called the Cradle of Life, which is supposedly where human life came from, actually houses Pandora's box, and that is where life really comes from. However, what's left in the box is a virus, anti-life as Lara puts it, basically the whole balance of nature thing. Which is again very different to the original myth, because it says that Pandora opened the box, releasing all the evils it contained into the world, leaving a single thing left inside, the spirit of hope. So is this film saying that the human race is an immeasurable evil unleashed on the world? Yeah, can't really disagree much there, sadly. Lara also explains to the agents that the orb is the map to the location of the Cradle of Life, but they've only managed to get a partial image of the orb. So the agents give Lara the mission, she was gonna do anyway, to find the orb in China. And Lara insists she needs someone who knows the gangsters, a man by the name of Terry Sheridan.
Terry Sheridan, formerly a commander with the Royal Marines, turned mercenary and traitor.
I hate to correct you, old boy, but there is no commander rank in the Royal Marines. The equivalent would be Lieutenant Colonel. Please do your research next time. The movie then shifts to a snowy prison somewhere as Lara is escorted inside past the very crowded cells, to the cell where Terry Sheridan is being kept, and it's a rather young-looking and at the time relatively unknown Gerard Butler. Lara offers him a deal, his freedom record expunged, a new identity and £5 million, as long as he helps Lara get to the Chinese gangsters and Chen Lo. She also says she has authorization to kill him for any reason, which is kind of extreme considering we never really find out what he did to deserve it. But he's on a tight leash as he agrees to go with her. Now it really is a shame that Daniel Craig didn't come back for this film, because it would have had so much more weight if it was Alex West helping Lara instead of this guy, who we've just met and are supposed to believe he has a lot of history with Lara. Anyway, this new inside man, Sheridan, suggests getting into China via truck, but Lara has a faster idea, as she and Sheridan fly into China like an elevator straight to hell, as they narrowly miss a fisherman and then eject, before the pod crashes into a million pieces so they can't be traced, which is unconventional to say the least. They meet up with an ally and friend of Lara's, and she has their clothes, guns, and knives. It's not really explained how she has them. If Lara and Sheridan needed to crash to get into the country undetected, how did they smuggle equipment? But anyway, Lara calls Hillary with her tech friend flying a model helicopter to set up something later in the film. Lara and Sheridan get on motorbikes, Sheridan saying they should keep a low profile. But this is Lara Croft, so naturally she drives on the Great Wall of China. And then they have what amounts to a pissing contest on bikes for a few minutes. But then the fun's over as they have to hike, and then Sheridan randomly stops to ask Lara if he was the love of her life or another bump in the road, as he puts it. Which, apart from a little sexual tension that's in every male-female team-up in movies, there's been no indication of this sort of thing, so it just comes right out of left field as the movie stops and tells us, hey, these two used to be together. Which again would have had a lot more weight and significance if it was Daniel Craig's character, not this somebody. Meanwhile, on the streets, one of Chenlo's guys has a box, presumably containing the orb, but he's picked up by Rice's goons as they spray something in his eyes just to fuck with him, I guess, which is the stupidest looking kidnapping I've seen in a while. Rice now has the box, but looking inside, instead of the orb, he finds a phone, as Chenlo still has it. And then he kills Chenlo's man when he refuses to explain about the telephone. Rice calls Chenlo and he threatens his family with horrible diseases, but Chenlo doesn't bite and says he'll just give the orb to Lara if anything happens to them. So Rice uses his other tactic of money, doubling the fee for the return of the orb, which Chenlo is agreeable. He's kind of a one-trick pony, this bad guy. Well, two-trick pony. It's either threaten with horrible disease or throw money at it. He's still a better villain than Powell was, who was such a mustache-twirling bad guy, it was kind of comical. Lara doesn't like the way Sheridan is dealing with the situation, so she just points a gun at him for wasting her time. Wow, when they gave her permission to kill him for any reason, they weren't kidding, were they? But the gangsters surround them and take them hostage, which was Sheridan's plan, as being captured is the only way to see the Shaolin gangsters, which must make pizza deliveries a hassle. They both get face to face with Chenlo as he goes over why Sheridan pissed him off by stealing some of his priceless vases. But Sheridan does convince him to speak with Lara and listen to her offer, leaving Sheridan with the big guy. And in Chenlo's office, there's a load of terracotta warriors. Hey, I'd be careful with them. I hear they can come to life and try and take over the world with Jet Li. Lara negotiates with Chenlo, guaranteeing his safety if he gives her the orb. However, he refuses and then a fight breaks out. Lara hides in the statues, which Chenlo seems rather willing to smash to bits. And while that's going on, Sheridan is getting beaten as he waits for Lara. Lara finds a stockpile of old guns. She fires one, but it either doesn't work or isn't loaded, so instead she starts doing military rifle drills that honestly seem quite effective, modified into a martial art, as she defends herself from Chenlo, eventually stabbing the guy in the foot and knocking him down. She gets him to tell her where the orb is, and she also takes the coin, slicing his leg in revenge. But as she walks away, Chenlo tries to shoot her and misses, so Lara straight up murders the guy. Which certainly makes it seem like Lara is drifting further into the anti-hero route, because that was pretty brutal. And if it was designed to do that, then it's pretty good. Because we're seeing a Lara who wasn't the best at everything. She was beaten and practically destroyed by that man. So her drive for revenge and Pandora's box has made her harder and less forgiving. Lara runs and meets up with Sheridan, who is just biding his time and letting them beat him, as he takes them all out pretty quickly. They both jump down the cliff upside down and shooting bad guys, because again, uber badass, and make their escape via a truck to Shanghai. Lara calls Hillary with the tech friend playing a helicopter game. Again, they really want to set up something for later. And Lara tells them that the coin she took has markings that relate to the orb, and they figure out that sound is what's needed to activate the map. That night, Lara and Sheridan are waiting for the orb to be delivered to Rice as everyone starts arriving, causing the locals to flee and close up shop. And while they wait, Lara and Sheridan have another heart-to-heart, as she asks why he became a mercenary, and he just says it was easy. Then more talk about him and Lara together, which is still kind of out of place. Their conversation is cut short as a helicopter arrives and everyone mobilizes. Lara climbs on an illuminated dragon, moving it closer to the meeting. She starts shooting at the helicopter, making them fly off and slice the dragon's head. Which, I'm not sure helicopter rotor blades would either slice that so cleanly or survive doing that in the first place. Wouldn't the thing just crash and explode? But anyway. A gunfight breaks out with Lara running and shooting bad guys, cars, anything really. Rice tells the guy with the box to deliver it to him above the pagoda, and Lara and Sheridan meet up to try and catch them. Rice shoots the guy after he gets the box, but Lara pole vaults onto the helicopter, managing to get a tracking device on it before falling into a truck. Lara tracks the helicopter to Hong Kong, but instead of on top of a building, the tracking device is directly under their feet. And in his evil underground base, Rice has the orb and is working to decode it. Lara and Sheridan get to the entrance to Rice's lab, and spotting a guy getting the door open, they point guns at him, getting him to let them inside. And in the security room, they beat up all the guys. Lara trips the fire alarm, getting all the scientists to clear out pretty quick, which is a great practice for a place that makes deadly viruses and toxins. Rice is notified of the alarm and knows Lara's there, sending his armed goons to take care of it. They start firing at each other, again around very dangerous viruses. Sheridan cuts the lights and Lara starts shooting the glass, allowing her to get to the goon and knock him out. Lara gets to the orb and calling Hillary and Techie, she starts to record the rest of it, as Rice and more goons show up, who Sheridan doesn't shoot, casting doubts on his loyalty. Lara shoots the computer screens, which I assume is to just make things difficult, cause it's not like that would do much, and the head goon pushes her head into the table and the glass. Rice confirms his clients have all paid, and that's when Lara figures out his plan. Rice's plan is to give all his clients the Pandora's Box virus so they release it and kill everyone Rice didn't give the antidote to, which will create a new world order in his image. Seriously, this film went from an archaeological adventure with people out for money as bad guys to a James Bond plot. So again I say, where the hell is Daniel Craig? The computer completes its work, so they decide to shoot Lara, but Sheridan shoots them instead, as Lara manages to get the orb and then run off with the goons taking chase, and Rice has Lara's communication device to use for nefarious purposes. Lara and Sheridan get to the roof as the goons shoot, and getting to the top, they find their escape route out of there. But they're not parachutes, they're flying suits, as they jump off for an honestly impressive sequence of the flying suits in action, which is 100% genuine, adding that air of authenticity. They make it to a ship in Hong Kong Bay, paying off the captain. In their cabin, Sheridan looks at the orb while talking with Lara, with her still not trusting Sheridan completely, saying he could steal it right now, but he assures her he wouldn't do that to her. That night they have some downtime in the cabin, and there's a brief kiss moment, as the sexual tension between these two is the only subject the film cares about when they're not shooting guys. But while they kiss, Lara handcuffs him to the bed. Kinda kinky, but okay. Lara then asks why didn't Sheridan shoot Rice, and because of that, she's releasing him from MI6 service, and he says she's doing it because she's afraid to pull the trigger. But you'd think the guy would just count his blessings. Lara takes a raft, and while a Chinese family are watching Asian SpongeBob SquarePants, Lara enters their home to use the TV, as she sets up a conference call between her, Hillary, and her tech friend, resorting to using the little girl's chewing gum to steady the camera. Also, it's not a big deal, but when speaking Chinese in this film, everyone speaks Mandarin. However, in Hong Kong, the prominent language is Cantonese. Like I said, it's not a big deal. You just think a movie about cultures, ancient and otherwise, would know that China is made up of many different languages. Lara gets talking with Techie, and he's acting rather strangely, looking behind him all the time. Lara asks him to send the sound key to activate the orb, but it doesn't work and he wants to stop. But Lara gets the sound file from him, which activates the orb as an image of Africa is projected from it, giving Lara the location to the Cradle of Life, and being spooked by something, it causes her to put the orb down. It's then revealed that Rice somehow managed to get to England from Hong Kong in a very short space of time and hold Hillary and Techie at gunpoint. Now that made Lara look kind of selfish and not very observant, with the Techie acting very strangely. However, I think that's actually the point. That at this moment in the film, Lara is so focused and determined to get to Pandora's box, and maybe still wanting revenge from Rice, that she's not paying attention to the important things, and her obsession will come to a head soon. Lara gets to Africa calling another ally and friend. She must have one of those in every country of the world. And as is Lara's style, she meets up with him in a ridiculously over-the-top fashion, parachuting into the vehicle. Can't this woman travel by plane like the rest of us for once? They get to a tribe Lara's ally knows and she shows them the orb. They warn her to leave or risk death on the world, but she just tells her how it is, that if she doesn't find the box, other people who will use it for evil reasons will instead. And the tribe leader also warns her of something he calls the Shadow Guardians, who will kill everyone attempting to get to the Cradle of Life. So Lara and her tribesmen walk off to find the Cradle and Pandora's box, which is near the summit of a close-by mountain. However, it's then Rice shows up with helicopters and armed men shooting. They get captured and Rice thanks her for leading them there, but he requires her help to lead them to the Cradle. And because Rice has only 2 modes, Mode 1, he offers her fame and fortune and a chance to see where life came from. But when she refuses, Mode 2, he brings out Hillary and her tech friend and threatens them into getting Lara's help. Her African contact says she should do it, but reading between the lines of what he said, they're now deliberately intending to incur the wrath of the Shadow Guardians. And back with Hillary and Techie, Sheridan is there to save them, as he takes out the few remaining goons guarding them, and then the payoff for all of the tech guys' setup.
Don't suppose either of you know how to fly a helicopter? I can. What? for 150 hours between flight simulation games, models.
So there you go. Video games save the day. Finally, the geek has a purpose at last. Lara, with Rice and his goons, have made it to what looks like Fangorn Forest, and they can sense something strange is watching them. And as one of the mercenaries decides to touch sap on a tree for some bizarre reason, he's grabbed by something and taken away. The film then takes on a sudden horror movie-like atmosphere as the mercs are continually taken out by the Shadow Guardians. They start shooting in every direction until the creatures show themselves, openly killing the guys, dragging them away as they phase through trees. I do like these creatures. They're a cool, quite monstrous looking design, and they're a pretty formidable foe as well. Plus, comparing them to the stone creatures from the last film, they're so much more interesting and actually pose a credible threat to our main characters. Lara realises the creatures are attracted to movement. They have something in common with a T-Rex then, I guess. And everyone stays still as the creatures go back to where they came from. Rice forces Lara's friend to walk to where the box is, but before anything can happen, Lara realises where the orb needs to go, and stops her friend. She knocks down Rice, running with the orb. The head goon tries to stop her, however he's rather brutally eaten by a creature. But before Rice is caught too, Lara places the orb in a hole, causing all the creatures to disintegrate. Why couldn't she have waited just a few more seconds for the creatures to kill Rice? It couldn't have been that hard just to pause before putting the orb in the hole. Then all problems would have been solved. But no, as Lara has jumped into the hole the orb created and Rice jumps in after her, they find themselves in a weird lightning cave with Rice holding Lara at gunpoint.
Don't think you can outwit me, Croft.
Do shut up.
Ha! I wish more people would say that to these overdramatic bad guys. They start looking for the box and the place has gone all MC Escher with the gravity in the cave completely messed up. Sheridan rappels into the cave as Lara and Rice find the box in a pool of black liquid, which Rice says is acid, as he forces Lara to get the box, holding her by her shirt. But she pulls herself up and runs off to hide using the cave's bizarre properties to her advantage. Sheridan, meanwhile, uses his gun to get the box out of the liquid, melting the gun in the process. Lara jumps down behind Rice and they start fighting. Sheridan points a gun at Rice to stop him from shooting Lara, and after a small scuffle they both fall off the ledge. Lara manages to grab onto it, but Rice falls into the acid, for honestly, a really ugly end for him, as he melts and dies. Very satisfying end there for a proper villain. And there wasn't any of that Lara tries to grab his hand but he falls anyway kind of thing. He was a horrible person and suffered for it. It's great to see the film remove itself from cliché. Lara sits down and Sheridan patches up her wounds, telling her that her friends are fine. And then another kissy moment, that's probably the most believable of the film. They get ready to go out of there, however Sheridan wants to take the box, but Lara realises that it's too dangerous and needs to remain where it is. Sheridan is determined to take it and sell it as his reward. I guess the several million for this operation wasn't enough for him. He gets angry at Lara, saying she'd better kill him, and then he hits her in the face, knowing she won't shoot him. Okay, I know how this is going to go down. Sheridan's going to be all pissed off and wanting the box, but Lara will talk to him and tell him what's the right thing to do. And eventually, Sheridan's going to realise that he's... Wow. I gotta be honest. I didn't see that coming. Mainly because after all this stuff with Sheridan, he ends up dying. Killed by Lara, no less. It's so different to how these kinds of films go. It should be the hard man with a dark past gets redeemed and Lara gets to be with him. So the fact that they didn't do that is again against convention and cliché. My personal interpretation is that Lara realises her obsession to get the box made her like Sheridan. But now she realises that the box needs to remain there. My only complaint, which I'm sure you know by now, is that if Sheridan was Alex West, this would have had such a larger impact and emotional connection. So, it's a surprisingly good ending, but it could have been better. Lara pushes the box back into the acid, leaving it there as it submerges, and getting out of the hole, she mirrors what she said at the beginning.
Everything lost is meant to be found.
But this time, realising her mistake.
Some things are not meant to be found.
Which shows a real growth in the character, and it illustrates how she's learned. She gives the coin key to the tribe leader so they may protect the cradle better, and then a rather oddly out-of-place comedy moment with Hillary and Techie being braided and painted up, not realising they're the grooms in a marriage ceremony. Kind of jarring considering how emotional the previous scenes were. So that was Lara Croft Tomb Raider: The Cradle of Life. Still too long a title. But the film surprised me again, as it's even better than the first film. This film pretty much takes almost all of my complaints with the first movie, like the lack of actual death in gunfights, the not very defined bad guys, and Angelina Jolie's padded bra, and improves on all of that. Apart from me making fun throughout, there's very little I can find to complain about this film. It's extremely well done for what it is. They could have made any old schlock action-adventure movie, but what they did was make Lara a well-rounded character who actually learns from her experiences, a credible and very villainous bad guy, and the plot itself took mythology and put its own spin on it to make it its own thing. I really don't understand why this film was so slashed by critics. Maybe because it was a video game adaptation and we're all conditioned to think they're terrible. But with this, I say it's pretty good. The Tomb Raider series did actually surprise me quite a bit, because like I just said, I went in expecting it to be really terrible, but in reality, it's actually quite watchable in my opinion. And to continue with adaptation and Angelina Jolie, next week we'll be looking at another one of her films, a comic book adaptation starring James McAvoy before he became Charles Xavier. See you next time.